Hi everyone, I'm Daniel, and it's time. We just got the article that talks all about the Drowned City, the Investigator expansion, and the new campaign itself. In this video, I am just going to talk about the Investigator expansion and the new Investigators and player cards that were just previewed by Fantasy Flight Games. I will give the link to the announcement article in the description, but I'm just going to make the cards really big on the screen for you and me to talk about. So let's get right into it. The first thing we're going to look at, of course, is one of the new investigators, and this is Marian Taris, and she's the Guardian. Really cool investigator ability here about playing events, but first thing, it's kind of necessary to talk about the fact that she has one fewer hand slots than normal, and that's because in her story, she had her arm bitten off by an aquatic monstrosity of some sort. Maybe we'll learn more about that on the back side of her card. Right now, we don't know her deck building. All we know about her is what you see here on the screen. So she's got 2 willpower, 3 intellect, 4 combat, 3 agility. So I think one of the few Guardians that has 3 agility at this point. Sister Mary, I think, is the other one. So maybe she would be interesting for combat training. The Drifter and Entrepreneur traits, which will matter in a little bit, which is interesting to talk about. And the reaction ability, after you play an event during your turn, draw 1 card, then you may play a different event, limit once per round. Okay, this is really cool. This is your card draw engine. This is your reason for playing lots of events in anyone other than Nathaniel Cho. Even not having that extra hand slot makes her want to play some more events that deal damage or do other sorts of things. We're going to see an event in a second that's coming out in the box that helps with this, but in the article they mentioned that you can play an event that might be fast, like, say, Tinker, which maybe helps with the hand slot issue in the first place, and draw a card from that and then play another event. So that other event won't cost you another action. It does not provoke attacks of opportunity, but you can net a whole lot of cards in hand if that event then draws you some more cards. So imagine that you play, say, Stand Together, that draws you some cards, draw another card with this, and then play something else that might draw you a card as well. Notably, different always means different title, so you can't play a different card, right? It has to be a different title also. Her Elder Sign effect, +1, search top 3 cards of your deck for an event and draw it. Okay, this is like the Leo Anderson Elder Sign, which should be searching allies for you. This one, well, your deck should be made of events, so probably will trigger. And then 8/6 is pretty standard Guardian fare. Determined, she has 2 copies of Determined. We know that. And it is a skill with 1 wild icon. And if this skill is successful and it is on an event you played, you may return Determined to your hand instead of discarding it. I think this is kind of funny. It's like the Wilson Richards +1 skill value when you use tools. It's very similar. I guess you just are using this all the time until you hit an auto fail or just fail a test. Good. Really good. Her weakness is I'll do it myself. Goes in your threat area as an additional cost for you to play an event. Take 1 horror. Uh-oh. If you're playing lots of events, you probably need to keep some back. So when this pops up, that you have some events to discard from your hand. So that is the way you get rid of it. Free triggered ability, discard 3 events from your hand, and you get rid of the weakness. I don't know how often she's going to be cycling her deck, so this might just happen once. But remains to be seen, really. Guardians don't tend to draw so many cards, but there's so much here that says you probably will, that maybe this happens twice, maybe. But also someone else could do this, right? Someone else could do it for you, discarding 3 events from their hand. I imagine if you're like, you're meeting up with a Patrice or someone who doesn't really care, but it has to be 3 events, not just any old 3 cards. Now, this is really cool when you talk about some of the cards that she's able to take, probably. We know that this Ready for Anything card that is just also spoiled in the article, as well as the upgraded improvised weapon she can take. So clearly she has some access to tactics, improvised, or survivor cards. Let's look at these and then I'll go back to what I was saying about the weakness in a second. So we have a 1 cost event here, Ready for Anything. It is Spirit. It is bold. Spirit is nice for things like boxing gloves, if she can somehow get that into play. I don't know if she's able to take 2-handed cards. Play only as your first action because bold cards are like that. Draw one card, two cards instead if you drew an enemy this round, which you probably hold this back. So you can draw two cards and then another one with your ability. Then heal one horror. Doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity. Nice. This is Second Wind, right? But Bizarro Second Wind, where you are doing the card draw part first and then you heal one horror. So Second Wind lets you heal 2 damage. This only ever gets you the one horror, but that's still pretty good. I think that helps with the weakness, and I mean, the card draw is fantastic, right? Okay, then we've got the upgraded improvised weapon, level 2. This is originally from the Forgotten Age. Still one cost, and still you're able to play it from your discard pile. If you do, shuffle it into your deck after resolving its effects, and then draw one card, which is great, right? One of the things about the improvised suite from Forgotten Age, winging it, impromptu barrier, which is a little tough, is that it does eat some of your draw later since it's shuffling back into your deck, and you don't really want to play it from hand, although you could. This is going to let you draw through the deck at a more normal pace. The other change is that the fight gives your difficulty of the test -2. So the attacked enemy gets -2 fight, and if you play it from your discard pile, it deals +1 damage. That part is unchanged from level 0. Now, remember, the weakness that she has says if you discard 3 cards from hand, then you get to get rid of the weakness. So if this does go in your hand, maybe you hold on to it for fodder for the weakness. I think that's super cool. Okay, so like I said, from the backside of her card, we actually have no idea what she can take. It's possible that she can take the tactic cards. I hope that there's also an upgraded winging it and impromptu barrier as well. One thing I do know is that Nick, one of the designers from FFG, next week at BusterCon is playing Marian Taris. So hopefully by next Saturday or so, we will know what her deck building is. Or maybe he's just going to toy with all of us and not let us look at the other side of her investigator card. This is a really cool design. I think the combination of the theme of the investigator and the mechanics of having one fewer hand slot is I would say like pretty unheard of in the game. I'm trying to think of other investigators that really lean into the theme and the mechanics that way. I don't know what came first. I don't know if they came up with the investigator and her background and then figured out how a way to do it with mechanics, or they realized maybe that this ability she has is really, really strong and they needed to tone her power level down a bit and therefore took away hand slot. I don't know. Either way, it's a real win. I think there's a lot of theme here that's fun. I think the play style is really cool. Probably of the investigators we've seen or know that are in the box so far, I'm the most interested in playing her. I think the stat line is cool, and I love Guardians in general. So should be a good time when she does get her full card pool announced. Okay, so that's what we know from the Guardian side, and a little bit of Survivor, I suppose. Next thing we can look at is Agatha Crane. And she's got a lot of cards here on the screen. The weird part is that we have both a Seeker and Mystic version of her, and the two are identical except for the class. So I'll just read one of them. She's the parapsychologist, and she's an older Arkham Files investigator. Marian is totally new. So 4 willpower, 4 intellect, 1 combat, and 3 agility. Same stat line as Marie Lambeau. And a pretty standard 4 willpower, 4 intellect investigator, so nothing surprising there. Same health and sanity as Marie as well. Miskatonic and Scholar, when your turn ends, if you sealed, canceled, or ignored 1 or more chaos tokens this round, play a spell or insight event from your discard pile. After that event resolves, remove from the game. Okay, so they have a little bit of recursion going on here, but you don't get to do it forever. Removing it from the game is a nice way to tone down that power. Elder Sign ability is +2. You may cancel this token and draw another one in its place. If you do, draw 1 card. Okay, so this investigator does play up the whole canceling, ignoring, or sealing, and manipulating the chaos bag in a way, as you'll see in a second, that to get an exact token that you want. And that, I think, is a fun playstyle and spin on some of the investigators that we already have that do this. It's different from Jim. It's different from Father Mateo, who are fishing for particular ones. I think this Agatha Crane investigator is going to be more interested in trying to get a particular numerical value. As you probably remember from Feast of Hemlock Vale, there's a few Seeker cards that care about succeeding by an exact amount. We're going to get one more in a second. Anyway, but just like Marian, this is another way to play events that are that is not part of your normal turn actions. So if you play one of those spells or events, it's not going to provoke an attack of opportunity. It just happens at the end of your turn. I don't think you're going to do this all the time unless she has a large deck size and tons of spell events or insight events that you want to churn through. But you do want to do this enough to feel like you're playing this particular investigator. Okay, the other side of her card, the deck building, we do not know what it is like. All that we were told in the article is that the Mystic one is going to be more interested in spells, but probably also getting some insights from other colors, or at least from Seeker, and the reverse for the Seeker one. More interested in playing insight events, and probably gets a little bit of a splash of spells too. So we might just get a basic like 0 to 5 Mystic, and then 0 to 2 or 0 to 3 insights from Seeker, maybe even 0 to 5 insights from Seeker. I don't know. It seems like a little bit much. But maybe it's insights from any color. Who knows? We're just speculating at this point. We do know her signature card and her weakness right here on the screen. The Ocula Obscura, this is a 3-cost asset, takes up an accessory slot, so you probably want this and not like a Holy Rosary or anything, or the kind of St. Hubert's Key thing that you would normally do. After you succeed at skill test, reaction, if there are no tokens sealed here, seal a non-symbol token, revealed during this skill test on Ocula Obscura, once per phase. Forced, when you would reveal a token from the Chaos Bag, resolve the token sealed here instead, then release that token. So token gets sealed in the card, you resolve its effects, its numerical value, its modifier, and I guess that's it because it has to be non-symbol, and then release the token back into the bag. So you succeeded a skill test. Maybe you had like 3 tokens that you resolved or something. Maybe curses or whatever were involved. There's nothing sealed on here. You pick one of those tokens, like a 0. And now for the next skill test you take, you get to choose, well, you have to use that 0 to in the next test. So that's pretty neat. I think you then know exactly how much to commit. It's kind of like a premonition, sort of like a scrying mirror, and you can then pass your tests at an exact number. Probably a little bit scary if you happen to succeed at a skill test by a lot, and you're up a lot, and then you draw like a -5. And then there it is. The next test you take may not be one that you are able to get 5 up on. So I wonder if her playstyle is going to be more low to the ground and try to succeed at a skill test by not too much, right? 2 at most. That way you can deal with like a -2, maybe from the bag on any old test that happens later. Because it is a forced effect. You can't just choose to not use that token. Or you just take another skill test. You just make sure that you have that. And I suppose you don't have to seal the token. So you draw in -5 or something. You don't have to do it. You can just say I'm not going to use that token in the future, so don't use the reaction. So maybe it's okay. Okay. Her weakness, though, Glimpse the Void. First time you reveal 1 or more Chaos tokens during each skill test, you must reveal 1 additional Chaos token and resolve its effects. Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch. That tends to be really difficult of an effect. It's on the Mystic weakness, the enemy weakness that makes you resolve more than 1 token for each empty arcane slot you have. I don't remember the name off the top of my head. And to get rid of it, you take 1 action, which is fine, but then it shuffles back into your deck. Oh, no one likes these weaknesses that go back in your deck, especially if you draw a lot of cards. So maybe you don't do that. Or you just have to deal with this issue. She seems pretty cool. I think I'm a little less like interested in her than what we saw from Marian, just because yet again we get this sort of seeker mystic combination, but maybe her um, her deck building makes up for that in some interesting way. Maybe she gets rituals. I don't know. So the Ocular Obscura does sound pretty cool and fun to play with if it's in play, because we have a couple of cards that were spoiled as well. Correlate all its contents is a 1-cost Seeker event. An Insight, which is unsurprising. It's an Investigate, so you will get a clue here if you pass. But you may cancel the first Chaos token revealed from the skill test, return it to the bag, and reveal a new one. If you succeeded the skill test, place 1 charge or secret on an asset controlled by Investigator at your location. If you succeed by exactly 1 or 3, place 2 charges or secrets on that asset instead. So again, you get to use the Ocular Obscura to figure out exactly how to succeed by 1 or 3. I think it's a fine card. I don't think it's particularly strong, except for if you're using the charges. I think placing secrets is not particularly difficult in this game. We have things like Truth from Fiction. We have Ariadne's Twine. Got a lot of ways to charge things up that way. But charges at level 0, that doesn't really happen. So if she can take this and refill spells, if she can refill things like Close the Circle to get extra actions, that seems pretty neat. So I would definitely be interested in putting this in probably a lot of Mystic Seeker hybrids. I think they can make use of it, like Norman probably. But just to place 1 probably isn't as exciting as being able to know that you should place 1 or 3. Sorry, succeed by 1 or 3, placing 2. So taking things like Steady-Handed maybe is the way to go. Okay. We have a big old spell over here, Whispers of Doom. Spell, Cursed, 3 cost. It's a lot. It is a parlay, though, so we are now adding a little bit more to the parlay cards in Arkham Horror, the card game, for Alessandra, perhaps. But for Agatha, she can choose a non-weakness enemy at your location and test 3 willpower, plus X difficulty, where X is that enemy's horror value. This sounds a lot like Persuasion. If you succeed, defeat that enemy. That doesn't sound like Persuasion, which just shuffles it back into the deck. Or deal it 3 damage instead if it's elite. That is really good. This is a strong card. I think is not cheap, though. 3 cost is not cheap. But if you have a big chunky enemy that has victory, or just an elite card that you want to defeat, or do 3 damage to, rather, that seems really good. Like, why wouldn't you play this in most of your decks? If you fail to place 1 Doom on that enemy, okay, well, you maybe have String of Curses as a backup. It reminds me of Waylay, which is a survivor card that does something kind of different, although that one takes a couple of actions, or someone needs to exhaust the enemy first. And in that, it can just auto-defeat some enemies. So you go up to the Broods of Yog-Sothoth in Undimensioned Unseen in Dunwich, and you can just defeat them. It's going to be a tough test, but Mystics can do it, right? They can get their number up high enough. Seems like a fun card. Cool art too, right? Okay, what else did we get from this article? We got something called a specialist card. Now, these are cards that are actually neutral cards as far as deck building goes, but they all have the text that restricts them from being taken by any investigator. So Library Pass here, a 2-cost, 1 experience asset, level 1, item, Miskatonic, and only can go into Miskatonic and Scholar decks. So we're looking at Daisy Walker, we're looking at most of the Seekers, but not all of them. Certainly, when we talk about Library Pass, it's got to be Daisy, right? What does it do? Only get 1 of them. During your turn, if there's no asset attached to Library Pass, spend 1 resource. Attach a tome asset from your hand to this card. Don't pay for the cost, don't pay the action. You just spend 1 resource and it gets into play, essentially, taking up no slots. Just 1 in play. When your turn ends, place attached asset on the bottom of your deck. You know how Seekers can get things off the bottom of their deck. They might have a scroll of secrets around. Oh my goodness. This seems quite good as a combo piece, right? So you're putting your Grim Memoir out, you're investigating 3 times, and then you're putting it in the bottom of your deck, and then pulling it out again. That is a little crazy, but Seekers are known to do this sort of thing. Even with the more expensive ones, so, I mean, Necronomicon, I suppose, is one of them. What's the big one? The Narcotic Manuscripts? That one has some secrets on it. So I suppose that's okay, but I don't think it works because it's only revelation effects, so you wouldn't want to spend extra actions just um, spending the secrets off of it. So that one's probably not a great idea, but I'm thinking of the more expensive assets that you're saving a lot of money by just putting this into play without an action and not paying the resource cost. Right now it's just Grim Memoir, and maybe I guess you could put Schaffner's into play too, and that's 4 free resources, I suppose. I mean, that's pretty good. As long as you spend them all at the end by the end of your turn, you're getting a lot of value. Okay, True Awakening. This is an event. This one is level 2, costs nothing. Blessed Chosen Drifter deck only. I don't know all of them off the top of my head. I think Nathaniel chose a Chosen. Oh god, that sounds terrible. Hold on, is he? No, he's not. But Lily Chen is, and she could take this. And I believe the new Marian investigator also is a drifter. Let's go back and look. So these are things that we've never had to pay attention to before. She is a drifter, yes. And now we do. Nathaniel Cho, by the way, is a warden and a criminal, I think. Anyhow, you can do 2 of these things here on the card. Draw 2 cards, discover 1 clue, heal 1 damage, heal 1 horror. I think this is a fine card. I don't think it's anything super great. I think if you're playing Marian, it draws you another card on top of the draw 2 cards, which sounds fun. The reason I was thinking Nathaniel Cho might want this is it's a spirit, and that's what I always think about in terms of boxing gloves. But there's got to be a few other investigators who are somewhat interested. Father Mateo's not blessed. I thought that was kind of weird when I just saw that right now too. But otherwise, yeah, Lily Chen is on the art, right? Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next couple. We've got Nose the Grindstone. This is a 2-cost asset, 3 XP to put it into your deck, and you can only put it into Criminal, Drifter, and Entrepreneur decks. I hope Wilson Richards is one of those. I'm pretty sure he must be an entrepreneur, right? Got to look at this too. No, he's a drifter, and I believe Jenny Barnes is too. The parallel Jenny Barnes could take this, and it's a talent, so actually kind of an interesting idea for her. Anyway, what does this do? A free triggered ability during a skill test on a tool asset. Exhaust Nose the Grindstone. You get +2 skill value for the skill test. If this skill test fails, either replenish 1 supply on that asset or gain 1 resource. Cool. The +2 is basically like a crafty, which Wilson Richards can't take. The fail condition here is, I guess it's a nice little consolation prize. If you're playing more survivor type stuff, I guess you can make this work. Chainsaw in particular, right? You could fail and deal damage to an enemy at your location and get a replenish on the supplies on it. Or you actually can get both, right? You could order this to replenish 1 supply and then place 1 supply onto Chainsaw. I think this looks a lot better for something like Fingerprint Kit, where you really do not want to lose supplies, so failing feels really bad on a card like that. So this is a good one. I think this is a nice card. Not sure it's an all-star card. These are neutral cards, which is a strange balancing thing, right? Because it's neutral. Neutral things are usually overcosted, but these are restricted to only some investigators. They still feel a little bit on the expensive side. And that's definitely true with this last guy, Archibald McVeigh, or McVeigh. 4 cost, 5 XP, and Assistant Reporter Scholar deck only. Uses 4 secrets. You get +1 intellect. Secrets on assets you control, including this guy, may be spent as resources to pay for insight events you play. I like the text here. Publish or perish, they said. Perhaps we'll do both. Okay. 2 health soak, 3 horror soak. That actually is pretty good, but I don't know if it's 5 XP good. You have to really want to use secrets on other assets as resources to pay for inside events for this to be worth it. Just on his own, the 4 resources that you get out of it is basically the cost of the card. It's not terrible, but we've got things like the Black Cat that give you more soak and only cost 2 that are 5 XP. I don't think there are so many assistant, reporter, or scholars that want this over more like level 0 seeker cards. As most of these are getting you, say, Dr. Milan instead, which is a very similar card, costs you 4, gets you probably 4 resources over a few rounds and maybe more. So you really need to use the secrets off of other assets. And I don't know if that's that good. Maybe we'll see some more cards that will help us decide that. Okay, the idea of getting something out of the traits on your investigator card, I think is super neat. I think the card frame is a little bit different on these cards. I think there's a little bit of a gold coloring compared to the other neutral cards, so that's cool to see. Looking forward to seeing more of this. They did hint that the campaign also cares about your traits a little bit too. I wonder if they ever had this in mind when they were first designing the traits on investigator cards, or now this is a thing where they need to look back and say, some of these investigators that probably could take these cards can't, and maybe that's just the way it goes. Okay, we have one more thing to do, which is look at things that were not in the article itself. One of those things is a blow up of all of the investigator cards that are coming in the set. We were told that there are 6 different investigator cards, but there are 7 mini cards. We'll come back to that question in a second. 6 different investigators. So we do have 2 Agathas, of course. Right. So who's new here? We've got this Lucius Galloway that we can kind of see in the background. We're going to see a better version of his card in a second, so let's not talk about him. But George Barnaby's right up front, and no one guessed that he was Survivor. And the prevailing, I guess, story here of why he's a survivor is his background of, I think his wife was, and were attacked in a boat or something, and he survived essentially. And now his flavor is more about what he does with not so many resources, perhaps, and not his lawyer background as being the big hook. All right, so he's got 2 willpower, 4 intellect, which is a high number in Survivor other than Daryl. 3 combat, 3 agility. Nice stat line for a Survivor. Actually, this is the same as Bob, right? Who I suppose is more of a rogue, but whatever. Your max hand size is equal to the number of face-down cards beneath George Barnaby limit 5 cards. What? Your max hand size is 5? But you need to get the card there? You may commit face-down cards beneath George Barnaby to skill tests as if they were in your hand. Why you would want to do that and reducing your max hand size seems odd, but that's an ability, I suppose. After you discard a card from your hand, place it face down beneath George Barnaby, then draw 1 card. Okay, so your idea here is that you're using the cards underneath you to use for skill tests and then constantly putting more cards into your basement, as it were. Limit 1 per phase, so you can do this quite a bit if you have ways to discard cards from your hand. Certainly going over hand size in upkeep will do that too, so you should be able to then draw a card. Can you go over hand size in that way? Because does it just get checked once? Maybe so. Actually don't know the answer to that question. So let's say you have a max of 5, right? You do upkeep, you draw a 6th card, you discard that card from your hand, place it face down, then do you draw 1 card and get to keep it? Maybe. There's other ways to discard cards from your hand, of course. Things like cornered, things like hidden weaknesses, I think, are one of these things you discard from your hand, and you could lock it into your basement, I suppose. But the backside of his card has got to explain a little bit, because do you still draw 5 cards at the beginning of the game and you have nothing in your basement then? Then what do? You have to go down to No cards, one card. How quickly can you get that limit of 5 underneath you? I suppose there's precedent from other investigators of special setup, things like Safina. That's on the front side of her card, but I think Dark Insight for Diana is on the back side of her card, so there must be some more information that we just don't know. This is probably a great dark horse candidate. The low hand size investigator is this probably George. So the empirical hypothesis choice of when you run out of cards in hand, maybe this is the guy who can take it and do something with that. Hunting jacket, right? Taking cards from your hand and placing it underneath a different card, but still getting some value at it for later. Seems pretty good. I guess that's all I can think about for George right now. He seems like he could do pretty much anything, and that's a very survivor kind of investigator. Michael McGlenn is also over here, over on the left, and we see that he's got 3 willpower, high for a rogue, although nowadays we need to stop talking about rogues being all 1 or 2 willpower, because they're not. 1 intellect, though, is a real low number, but I guess he just won't be doing any investigating. He does have 5 combat, just like Tony Morgan, but unlike Tony, he's got 3 agility, so maybe some cards that add those numbers together actually make some more sense. His ability, we got a reaction that has something to do with ammo and gaining probably a resource per firearm that you control, or I don't know. We'll see. Elder Sign effect also seems to do something with ammo and things that you control. So other than that, I don't know. We're going to find out. Gloria, we already know. She was released before with different art. And the only thing that we don't know about is what her new signature cards are going to be. We know there's 3 of the weakness ones and 3 of her sig cards. But otherwise, it looks like the front side of her card is the same. There you go. 6 investigators. So let's look at Lucius. If you can't see, he has 2 willpower, 4 intellect, 1 combat, and 5 agility. He looks a little bit like Mandy, except for the numbers are moved around a bit, but you have 2 really good numbers. A little bit like Monterey Jack, too. Same 4 intellect, 5 agility. So most people think that he's got to be the missing 0 to 5 seeker, 0 to 2 rogue. And I would agree. There's nothing else here that seems to indicate that he could be anything but that. But, we'll see. He's a scholar, dreamer. He's a poet. Dreamer, probably related to the Dreamland stuff, maybe? He's a new character, but we'll see what else the backside has to tell us about his story. Anyway, the reaction here. After you successfully evade an enemy by 2 or more, discover 1 clue at your location once per round. Kind of like Rex, kind of like Trish. Elder Sign effect +1 for each enemy at your location. I mean, it's just a strong ability. It's pretty straightforward. The succeed by X stuff in Rogue, if he gets those cards, are going to be really good. Breaking Entering, remember, does not let you succeed by any number when you evade the enemy. It's an automatic success, so that doesn't count. However, I'm sure it's a great card. You're adding your 2 big numbers together, you get a 9. You'll be evading the enemy, even if you don't get an extra clue. Okay, we have some other things here. Gatling gun in the corner, you've already seen. Bulwark, we don't really know anything about. It's a ritual, which makes me think about, can Agatha take rituals? Cool art, but no other information here. Confidence, I'm fairly confident what it does. It's a skill. It says max 1 committed per test. For each additional chaos token revealed during the skill test, even if it was canceled or ignored, confidence gains something. 1 wild icon? 2 wild icons? 3? No. Probably 1 or 2, and this would be pretty cool for Bless or Curse, right? Curse in particular, giving you quite a bit. I just don't know if it's 1 or 2. Token manipulation in general seems to want this. If you're playing Alt McBride, seems pretty cool. But otherwise, perfectly fine level 0 skill. We've already seen the card in the middle, but the one over on the right is Transfiguration, probably. This is a ritual as well. And we don't know the level or cost of this card, but it does seem pretty strong. Says something about investigator card from your something, maybe until the end of the game. Treat the something investigator card as if it were the something card instead, including, I don't know, something, abilities, elder sign, something, and in something game. I don't know. Seems like, though, that you can remove your investigator card and play with a different investigator card. Probably that's that seventh mini card that you see at the bottom of your screen. So that's kind of strange. You play as a different investigator for the rest of the game. Like, when do you need to do that? I don't think you're picking out something else from your collection. I'm not sure. Some people have speculated maybe you just pick something else from your collection and play as that instead. I don't think so, but it could be. This seems like a strong effect that it's got to be a level 3 to 5 card, especially if that other investigator card that this comes with is indeed like pretty beefed up. So we were told that there are 3 mystic cards, investigators rather, in the box, and we've seen the 2. This has got to be the other one. Just don't know what it does. So excited about that. Do we have anything else to talk about? I don't think so. I think that is everything from this whole article and the associated stuff from the Fantasy Flight Games store, Asmodee, I suppose. Has these extra things. There's, again, a lot about the campaign, but I'm not covering that in this video. I may do that in the future. I don't tend to want to speculate too much about the campaign since we just get some teasers, and the player cards are a little more fun to think about how it fits into the larger picture of Arkham Horror, the card game. So that will be about it for this video. Thank you for watching this and watching my videos over the years. I do have a slight announcement to join or subscribe to my Patreon that I've just made live, and there's a couple of tiers that might interest you. I'm using this as a way to get you to give me some more feedback about my channel, especially what kinds of things you'd like to see in the future. So there's a couple of polls, there's going to be some deck lists, there's going to be some written stuff, specifically scripts from my videos that might be interesting to many of you, but also kind of weighing in on what will be showing up on my channel for the next year or so. I have some ideas of videos that I want to put out, but maybe you'll be able to tell me which ones you want to see earlier. That's it. It's a slight pitch. You don't have to do this, of course. It means a lot to me if you do support the channel. I'd like to buy a light that actually works in this room, and so I'm not recording everything in the middle of the day. But this is just a perk if you want to support and see more of this kind of thing on YouTube. That's it. I'll talk to you later.